Alors, bonsoir tout le monde.
Good evening, everyone. To begin, the City of Dieppe recognizes the land on which it operates is part of the unceded traditional territory of the Mi'kmaq. Colleagues, let's have the serenity to accept the things we cannot change, the courage to change things we can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Good evening. Welcome to all of you.
If you need translation devices, they are available at the back of the room. Alors, sans plus tarder,
So without further ado, I call this meeting to order. We have quorum. That brings us to conflicts of interest. Does anyone wish to declare a conflict of interest? Seeing no lights. Oh, Your Worship, I have a conflict of interest for nominations to Expansion Dieppe, so I filled in the form as recommended by Council. Thank you. Let's move on with the adoption of the agenda. Would someone so move? Councillor Thibodeau, seconded by Councillor Turgeon-Roy on the question. There being none, all those in favor of this motion will say aye. Against, nay. Motion is carried. This allows us now to continue with the presentations, inquiries, and petitions. And as is often the case, we welcome Inspector Chantal Farah in our midst from Kodiak Regional RCMP, who will be providing us with an update of things and to hear our complaints. Good evening and welcome. Good evening, Your Worship and councillors. I want to share the follow-up I have done about mufflers that are non-conforming. I discussed with the Diana Hill last week about the matter of motor-driven cycles, and she has said that it's a discussion she's having with other chiefs of police in the province. I have asked that our officers either to open a file on this matter, and they approach the groups of cars that are getting together municipality in order to educate them about the issue of noise and the importance of having conforming mufflers. We'll proceed in this fashion and continue the approach of sending loud vehicles to the inspection station when we stop them. I'll continue to do follow-up on this matter, and I'll keep you up to date and also deal with the people who brought this matter to our attention. I'll keep them abreast of our efforts and results. Next week, we have the anniversary of the loss of 3 of our officers, of the heroes who, the Dave Ross, Fabrice de Vaujean, and another who passed away. We celebrate all officers and honor those who passed away in the course of duty. And also there are 3 statues situated along Assumption Boulevard, and there will be a celebration at that statue at 4:30 on June 4th. At the request of the 3 families, there will be a modest gathering in order to honor them and celebrate what they've left behind. Those who wish to come and share this moment with us are very welcome to do so, because everything will happen outside at the monument site. Following that, I remind you that the commemorative run will be held on June 16 in honor of our 3 officers. It's an opportunity to come together as a community for a good cause, which supports the students in our secondary schools in Dieppe, Moncton, Riverview. The young people's names who will be chosen for scholarships will be announced at this run, and so I hope to see you all in great numbers. Any questions? Thank you. Any members of council wishing to have questions? Councillor Brideau. Thank you, Your Worship. Inspector Farah, I've heard you say that you've discussed a matter with the assistant superintendent, What I'd like to know this evening is, has it been stated that it was the duty of the RCMP to resolve the problem, or that the decision is being thrown back to the province with regard to the motor vehicle act, that that bans this type of firecracking noise? So I'm trying to determine the answer to this because we could talk about it. And, we were talking about this just a moment ago, in fact. We receive complaints from our residents. Moncton Riverview must have the same problems as we do. However, we can talk it over for the next year or 2 years and nothing will be done. What I'd like to know is, where do we draw the line? Is it the RCMP's duty, or is it the responsibility of the province to legislate once and for all? In the RCMP, we work with the laws and the powers that are given to us. Right now, we're working with the laws that we have been given, and that's why we've said we have undertaken this project where we order the vehicles that sound non-conforming to us to go and get checked. Clearly, if there are amendments to the act in the future, which is what you're proposing as option 2, well, then we have different tools to deal with. But right now, we work with the tools that we have at our disposal. As you requested, I made sure to follow up with the superintendent because we know that it is not a problem which we only have, but others have throughout Canada. So as the chiefs of police are talking this issue over to see if there's anything that we can do to put our concerns forward to the province, as you mentioned 2 weeks ago, that you would be doing this at the municipalities level. So I think if we all put our efforts together and join hands, then our voices will be heard, and I am doing what I can do in this matter. Were you told at one point, either by your superiors, that the act has to be, or the law has to be changed officially, or are we still going to be only talking about it? What I mean is it the duty of the province to legislate on this matter? Is it the work or the responsibility of the RCMP that hasn't been undertaken till now? It's not the responsibility of the RCMP to choose or to make changes. We make our observations, we provide advice, but it is not up to us to change the law. No, I'm not asking you to change the law. What I'm saying is, who has a law in their hands to act on it? Is it the province or is it the RCMP? I think based on your question, it's the province. Thank you. Thank you. Councillor Leboutillier. Thank you, Your Worship. Two things that I would like to raise. I'm very pleased to hear that things are starting to move because once again, over the weekend, not on the Gauvin, I'm sorry, but in Paul Street and the same area, there was a lot of noise. And the challenge that we have is that as soon as that RCMP, comes, they take off. And once the RCMP leaves, they begin again. And so I think it's probably important to look at things strategically. Is there, you are still restricted from the point of view of human resources and so on. But, this can't go on for years. There are too many citizens who are bothered and affected by this noise. So I think it's important to see how we can reduce this issue. And so thank you for what you're doing. My second point is with regard to Fortune Dolbeau. Lately, and maybe elsewhere, I've received many complaints, many young people. There are competitions on TikTok, I've heard, and they knock on the doors in the middle of the night and they take off, and 15 minutes later, they come back and knock on the door again. And so I wonder if it's possible, especially on weekends, to see, like, for example, there was no school on Friday, and so things lasted. There's some neighbors shared those issues with me, because this situation lasted quite a while. But I wanted to raise this with you. I would also open the door to say to parents and residents who are listening to us to have discussions with your young people, because it's not the police that should be addressing this, but rather the parents who should be vigilant and knowing what their young people are doing outside at night. You know, as a mother of a teenager myself, I'd like to know what's going on. And thank you for having drawn this to my attention.
Merci.
Thank you. I see no other microphone lights on. So thank you as always for being here, and thank you for your news. And clearly there will be people who will be in attendance for those events which will happen in the coming week. Unfortunately, I won't be in this city. You'll be there in spirit. Yes, certainly. You can be sure of that. Let's move on now to questions by members of the public. We received questions from members of the public. So please identify yourself. Yes. Good evening, Your Worship. Good evening, councillors and other city employees. Paul Albert from Saint-Anselme, Dieppe. The question concerning items 11, 11.5, 11.2, it might be more appropriate to wait to 11.2, item 11.2. In fact, you can provide the answer later, but my question is a city, or can someone from this city answer the following question? Does the city expect to do a traffic impact survey with regard to Amiro Street? 452. This evening, we're setting the date to begin the process. The council will be able to ask questions and asking if it's part of the complete assessment. I can assure you that in the original request, we had asked for a traffic survey. And with this project and the form of the proposal that we received tonight, this analysis will probably be revised. Council can certainly ask that several things be added. Tonight, we are setting the date to begin the process to make the documents public, and then following that discussions, there will be a public hearing held according to the date we set tonight. You will have an opportunity then to come and ask questions at that time too. Yes, I understand that. Because we were assured previously that there would be a traffic survey undertaken. The project is probably different, so we are certainly going to be asking for a traffic impact study. Thank you. Thank you for your answer. Thank you and good evening. Thank you. Let's move on to... Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't see you, sir. Good evening, Your Worship. Paul Velliveau, Dieppe resident. With regard to traffic, maybe not the noise, but the speed with people approaching red lights and those the continued discussion of cameras to capture those individuals who are too quick to get to Tim Hortons to pick up their coffee. Has anything been done about this, Your Worship? I'm not sure where we're at with this file. Maybe Mr. Melançon could give us an update. There are two files this evening that deal with public safety in the province, and so be it noise or the speed at intersections. So we have a project for cameras at intersections, which is on the table. And so we are reviewing the fines issue to see if we can invest in cameras. We still have no answer to that. But you're going to be discussing that tonight, if I've understood? No, we're not tonight, but we're going to be following up, continue to follow up with the province and attempt to get an answer from them as to who has the responsibility for the purchase of this equipment and for the management of the incomes brought about by fines related to these infractions. Thank you. I wish you good luck. Thank you. No one else is going to surprise me now? Let's move on now with the adoption of the minutes of the regular council meeting held May 13, moved by Councillor Brideau, seconded by Councillor Genet on the question. There being none, all those in favor of this motion will say aye. Against, nay. The motion regarding the minutes of the regular council meeting held on May 13 are passed. This now brings us to item 11, motions, memorandums, and nominations. 11.1, under administration. A matter of the election of the deputy mayor. And this being said, I will give the floor to my neighbor, our colleague, Stéphane Simard, who will be helping us with this process. And it's the very first time we're doing this. Yes, thank you, Your Worship. It's also the passing of the procedural bylaw, if you remember, where we've talked about the election of the deputy mayor. I have a procedural memo to tell you how we're going to proceed. It's a easy five-step process. We'll do it one step at a time. And so we'll conclude with the making of a resolution by members of council. So the mayor invites councillors to put forward the names of their candidates. I have the names on a list in alphabetical order. And you can tell me what you'd like to do, Your Worship. Thank you. So I'll ask each member of council in alphabetical order if you would like to be a candidate for the position of deputy mayor. Councillor Brideau. Yes, I would like to be a candidate. It's noted. And for Councillor Godbout. Oh, you forgot Councillor Godet. Pardon me, Councillor Godet. Thank you, Worship. My answer is no. Councillor Godbout. Thank you. No. That's a no. Thank you. Councillor Genet. Thank you, Your Worship. It's a no for me. Councillor Lantagne. I'm very pleased to leave this opportunity to others. Thank you. Councillor Le Boutillier. No, thank you. Councillor Thibodeau. Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, I would like to be a candidate as deputy mayor. Councillor Turgeon-Roy. No, not for me. So that completes the list of councillors. We have two candidates, if I'm not mistaken, Councillor Thibodeau and Councillor Brideau. Okay, thank you, Worship. You have these candidates have an opportunity to speak for a maximum of 2 minutes. We'll continue with alphabetical order. Thank you, Your Worship. I decided to become a candidate because I'm persuaded that I can be helpful as deputy mayor. I'm now completing my third term. I realize that our council is a very positive one. It's pleasant to work with everyone and to work all together. The position of deputy mayor is a position which is there to support the mayor, first of all, and also to work in cooperation with all councillors. We're there to help everyone and to be a resource person as well, not only for citizens, but also for councillors. And so, Your Worship, I've probably said everything that I had to say about this, and so I'm very interested in the position. Thank you. Thank you, Your Worship. I decided to be a candidate because I think that in the past I held this position for many years, and I think I've proven that I could properly represent council and the mayor and represent the citizens of this city. And so I believe that I have the experience required, and I would like to continue on. So I ask for the support of my colleagues around the table. Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, Councillor Thibodeau. This brings us to the third step. We now vote by raised hands for the candidates. Thank you. So to continue in the order, the alphabetical order, those who are voting for Councillor Brideau, I have a question first. Even if I am a candidate, can we vote for ourselves, or do we let other councillors? You have the right to vote for yourself, and the other councillors are required to vote according to the bylaw. They can vote, but generally the mayor only votes in the case of a tie. So all those who vote for Councillor Brideau, raise your hands.
J'ai compté à gaz.
Alors, ça finit cette question. Alors,
So that ends the matter. Those who are voting for Councillor Thibodeau,
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Merci.
thank you.
Alors, je pense que, évidemment, on va
So clearly, we will thank Councillor Brideau for having offered his candidacy and congratulate Councillor Thibodeau for taking back a chair or a position he knows very well. So once the result has been announced, the resolution, we're rookies at this process here, you can see. So under item 11.1.1, election of deputy mayor. So would someone move the resolution that we accept the results of the vote, moved by Councillor Lantagne, seconded by Councillor Genin? Could Councillor Lantagne read the resolution 11.1.1? Thank you, Worship. That pursuant to Bylaw A4 2024, entitled Procedural Bylaw of the Municipal Council of the City of Dieppe, Councillor-elect Councillor Thibodeau as Deputy Mayor for a term starting June 1st, 2024 and ending May 31st, 2025. I so move. Thank you. Moved by Councillor Lantagne, seconded by Councillor Genin. On the question, there being none, all those in favor of the resolution will say aye. Against, nay. The motion is carried as read. Once again, congratulations.
Oui. Oui, eh bien, merci pour, la
Yes, and thank you
d'avoir,
to Councillor Genet for having
l'expérience au cours de la dernière année.
begun this experience over the past year. Thank you for your cooperation and for being there.
OK, alors 11.
Now let's move on to 11.1.2,
Signataires municipaux.
signing officers.
Avec le nouveau maire suppléant,
With the new deputy mayor of Councillor Thibodeau to make the reading to change the signing officers to make it official. Thank you. Councillor Genet, will you read the resolution? Thank you, Your Worship. That Yvon Lapierre, Mayor, or Ernest Thibodeau, Deputy Mayor, and Stéphane Thériault, Treasurer, or Marie-Ève Godbout-Carroll, Assistant Treasurer, are hereby authorized to sign all checks issued for and on behalf of the city of Dieppe. I so move. Moved by Councillor Genet, seconded by Councillor Turgeon. On the question, there being none, all those in favor of the resolution will say aye. Against, nay. The motion is carried. 11.1.3, a request for exemption concerning bylaw Z22. Mr. Melançon, we received a request from Hubert Cormier, who is launching a French language album, and following the external commercial signage bylaw Z22. This request complies with the request for exemption because it's targeting the francophones, so it allows us to accept this request for exemption. Thank you. To read this resolution. Thank you, Your Worship. That Council authors Hubert Cormier to proceed with unilingual francophone external commercial signage until further office. I so move. Thank you. To second this motion, Councillor Turgeon-Roy. And there being no questions, Councillor Thibodeau. Thank you, Your Worship. We said that we've authorized Acadie Nouvelle, TV5, Quebec Canada, Capital Theatre, Pays de la Sagouine, Francofête, Moniteur Acadien. These are all institutions and not individuals. So does this also apply to individuals as well? Mr. Simard, maybe you could answer that question. Yes, Mr. Simard. Thank you, Your Worship. The signage bylaw deals with signage and not the people who are putting up signs. So it's not the people who are regulated, but the signage that is regulated. And so even as an organization, you have to be authorized to use the public signage. So if we accept that, we are opening a door so anyone could make an application for an exemption. Well, there are criteria, Councillor Thibodeau, in Z22. It has to contribute to the promotion of the culture of the French language culture. So it's not anybody or anyhow that it can be done. There are things that have to be complied with. Okay, thank you. That's clear. Thank you. Any other questions? There being none? Yes, it has been moved and seconded. So all those in favor of the motion will say aye. Against, nay. The motion is carried as presented. This brings us to 11.2.1 under engineering, the tender award. Mr. Melançon, you have in front of you, following a tender call to pave various streets. So this is called Mill and Pave. So 3 submissions were received, and it has been recommended to go with Modern Construction, 1983 Limited, at the cost of $1,737,966 million plus HST. And the series of streets that will be dealt with this year are Bahama, Colette, sections of Tranquille Street, and a section of Clarence Cornier Street, and GF Bourgeois Street, Vézina Street, and Raphael Street. So these are projects being targeted by the 2024 Mill and Pave exercise. Thank you. To read this resolution, Councillor Le Boutillier. Thank you, Your Worship. That Council award the tender for the project entitled 2024 Mill and Pave Various Streets to the lowest bidder, Modern Construction, 1983 Limited, at the cost of $1,737,966 plus HST, and authorize that this expenditure be defrayed from account number 3-3-35-58-7601, General Capital Budget, Asphalt Management. I so move. Moved by Councillor Le Boutillier, seconded by Councillor Brideau. On the question.
Aucune question, Madame Godbout.
Questions? Councillor Godbout? Thank you. Just out of curiosity, when you look at paving on Tranquille, which is divided into 2, when does that happen? That you only do a part of a street, then you don't do the rest, and then you do the other part? And people are just wondering, like, for example, if you look at the schedule we'd been given, why don't we do a full street, the complete street, instead of, because otherwise there are different heights, and well, the part closer to Centrale Street, the western part, has been identified in the review, but it was only later that the other section was identified as having being deteriorated. So that's why it's added to the initial plan. Yes, thank you. Okay, I understand. Thank you. No further questions? Okay, so all those in favor will signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. It's carried as presented. 11.3 is for appointments. 11.3.1, an appointment for expansion Dieppe. Your Worship, I will abstain from introducing. I'll ask my colleague to present the nominee because of my conflict of interest. I won't vote, but I will still remain here in the room. So, Your Worship, it's just a question of appointing Roger Melançon, who is the brother of our CAO, to the board of Expansion Dieppe. Thank you. And who would like to read the resolution? Councillor Brideau. Thank you, Your Worship. That Council appoint Roger Melançon on Expansion Dieppe's Board of Directors for a term ending June 1st, 2027. And I so move it. It's been moved by Councillor Brideau, seconded by Councillor Lantaigne. On the question? Councillor Chenet. Thank you, Your Worship. Just to ensure transparency, I'd like to know if there were any other candidates, or is this the only one that was received from Council? Yes, it's the only one that was received by Council. Yes, thank you. That's a great appointment. Excellent appointment. Thank you. Thank you. Now, all those in favor then will signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. The appointment is adopted, and congratulations to Mr. Melançon for his commitment and his dedication to the community, especially given his own interesting history on the private and the political side. and he's now back to the private side
de nouveau. Alors, je suis certain que ça va
once
être
again. So
un bon ajout pour
it'll be a great
Expansion Dieppe.
addition to Expansion Dieppe.
Au item 11.
Now, 11.4
des opérations,
for operations, 11.4.1,
du
the demolition of the Dover Center.
Alors ici,
partie de l'histoire.
And this is a part of our history. Yeah, it's a part of history that is going to disappear in the Dover area. So this building was identified as needing demolition. Its useful life has come to an end. And so all the elements are in place in order to empty it. The work is underway. It's almost completed. It's supposed to be done by May 31st. But because of that, we adopted a budget and we went out to ask, we sent out a request for, sent out invitations to companies who undertake such activities, and CRB Environmental Demolition Services was recommended by staff for a cost of $38,000 plus HST. So following council approval, the contract should be awarded and everything should be done by the beginning of the summer, if everything falls into place. So we just need the authorization to demolish this public asset. Thank you. And who would like to read the resolution? Councillor Lantaigne. Thank you, Your Worship. That council award the contract for the demolition of the Dover Center to CRB Environmental and Demolition Services at a total cost of $38,000 plus HST, and authorize that this expenditure be defrayed from account number 1-2-70-79-2175, General Operating Budget, Maintenance and Repairs, Golden Age Club, and I so move. Thank you. Moved by Councillor Lantaigne, seconded by Councillor. If I find his name, Councillor Godet. On the question. Councillor Jeannet. Thank you, Your Worship. It's just a question of information. This issue of demolishing a historic building like this one, and furthermore, it serves Soccer Dieppe, a local group, utilizes the building. In the package, it says that it would cost about $190,000 to make it safe, and that there would be some architectural upgrades and heating upgrades would be necessary. So just to have an idea of a total cost that it would cost to keep the building compared to building a new one. Are we going to have any problems in the future? Because there's going to be a lack of buildings in that area and a shortage for community groups. So could you give us more details on the decision once again? Thank you. Mr. Richard, Mr. Bourque? Mr. Richard. Thank you, Councillor Jeannet. The question was addressed. It was studied in depth during the last year's budget process. The decision had been made at the time that it was better to tear it down, and that's why we created the sanitary services and an office closer to the fields, because it was quite far from the field. So there are still some challenges, though, because the building is a little smaller now, but there are alternatives for their group. So, and the other aspect, and Raymond would have the technical details, but I think that the amount of money that we would have had to put into that building just to maintain it wouldn't give us a long life to it. I mean, we'd have to, if we tore down walls, we might have discovered other things that would have cost even more. So that's the information I had on that. But I think that in terms of community development and the group that uses it, I think we were able to address their concerns, and there are solutions for them, I think. And there might be other technical details, but well, the biggest concern is that the group will end up with a smaller space compared to what they had before. In the future, are we going to have to think of building something new because we didn't fix this one? And that was my concern. That's why I was hesitating about voting for the demolition. But your information is clear and it's reassuring. But well, yeah, it helps. It's reassuring, but they're using the gym of a school as a plan B for this year. And remember that the Dover building was mostly used during bad weather, when they had summer programs. Their staff used it, but their staff right now are in the Dover office. Now, for the summer camp, we have another school that this Carrefour school is being used as Plan B, so they should be able to use the artificial turf and their fields. So we know that the recreational master plan was going to address this issue of artificial turf or a gym, or I mean, there's things that they need that they would like to see, but that would be in the longer term. For this year, at least, I think they're happy with following our discussions, and there are really no concerns in that regard. Thank you. Councillor Godet. Thank you, Your Worship. I just have a question. Do we have any plans for Dover Center afterwards? I mean, once it's demolished, what are we going to do with the field there? Mr. Richard. Well, that's more technical, so I'll give Raymond the floor to answer. Good evening. Now, to answer your question, this contract is to demolish and fill the space. Now, we're going to try and develop something there. Now, this contract is just for the demolition, and it's less than what we had thought. To see, we were wondering if we would put a parking lot or just an access. That would be another project. You know, an access to the riverfront trail. I don't have the final plans, but this will come at some time in the future. But for now, the field will serve as extra parking. Any further questions? If not, all those in favor of the resolution will signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. It's carried as presented. 11.5, planning and development. 11.5.1, to set dates. Yep, I'll let you continue on. Yeah, this is to set the dates for a public presentation and a public hearing for a municipal development plan and a zoning bylaw on Normandy Street on the corner of Acadie. And this is, it's for the development of the corner of Acadie and Normandy. So we're proposing a public presentation on June 24th here at 7 p.m. And we'd scheduled a public hearing on September 9th here at City Hall. And we're going to ask for the advice of the Planning Advisory Committee and extend the deadline to October 15th, 2024 to have all of the information and to allow the residents and the public to inform themselves and ask questions. And so this is what we're proposing to get the process started. Thank you. Who would like to read the resolution? Mr. Thibodeau. Thank you, Your Worship. That Council schedule a public presentation on June 24th, 2024 at 7 p.m. at the Dieppe City Hall to present the proposed amendments to the Municipal Development Plan Bylaw Z-9 2017 Land Use Map and schedule a public hearing on September 9th, 2024 at 7 p.m. at the Dieppe City Hall to hear objections pertaining to the proposed amendments relating to the zoning bylaw Z-10 2021 zoning map for the land identified under PID 006-73160 in order to allow the development of a residential and commercial project at the intersection of Acadie Avenue and Normandy Street. That Council request the written views of the Planning Advisory Committee and extend the deadline pursuant to Section 110 3 of the Community Planning Act to October 15th, 2024 with regard to the above-mentioned project, and I so move it. Thank you. It's been moved by Councillor Thibodeau, seconded by Councillor Brideau on the question. No questions. All those in favor of the resolution will signify by saying aye. Contrary, nay. It's carried as presented. And a second public hearing, again, it's to set a date for a project that would be at 452 Amiro Street, and this is to set a public hearing on June 24th at 7 p.m. here at City Hall in order to propose the zoning bylaw, zoning map, and to allow the public and citizens to come give their opinion, to get some information. And we're also requesting the written views of the Planning Advisory Committee and extend the deadline to September 9th, 2024, with respect to this project. So it's to start the process. Thank you. Who would like to read the resolution? Councillor Brideau. Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you. That Council schedule a public hearing on June 24th, 2024 at 7 p.m. at the Dieppe City Hall to hear objections pertaining to the proposed amendments related to the zoning bylaw Z-10, 2021 zoning map for the land identified under PID 706-02610 in order to allow the use of multiple unit dwellings with terms and conditions in the institutional zone. Aye. That Council request the written views of the Planning Advisory Committee and extend the deadline pursuant to Section 110(3) of the Community Planning Act to September 9, 2024, with respect to the above-mentioned project. And I so move it, Your Worship. Thank you. It's been moved by Councillor Brideau, seconded by Councillor Thibodeau on the question. Councillor Godbout. Thank you, Your Worship. Just a question of clarification, please. Oh, just a second. We're launching a process for a new project, a modified project. There was a former project with 2 buildings. Now there's only going to be 1 building, but the same number of units, more or less. Is that right? One of the concerns that had been brought up to Council by myself, by others as well, I believe, was that the safety, because there would be a great deal of traffic coming out of there. There would be an interaction. We had talked about the traffic impact study that was mentioned by one of the members of the public as well. Is it appropriate at this point to initiate the process if we don't have the traffic impact study yet to make sure that it's a project that we want to support? I just want to make sure that we're not putting the cart before the horse, especially for a process that had met with a lot of opposition. So I want to make sure that we have all of the elements in place before we start using city resources and the developers' resources as well. Thank you for your question. Yeah, the traffic impact study had been recommended by engineering, and we can certainly contact the developer to get it started as quickly as possible to make sure we have the information in time for June 24th, or at the very latest to have for a decision in September. So yes, we will contact the developer and make sure that they start this study as quickly as possible. Well, that's not sufficient for me. If we initiate the process today that we're going to schedule a public hearing, it's that because we want to have a public hearing and that gives the public a chance. But people are concerned about the safety, and I don't want to come here 3 months later that we say, oh no, for safety reasons, it's not a good project. So for me, it's something that would contribute to the decision this evening. If I had the decision, I would have thought that those who are recommending this process should have the information before recommending it to us. It seems to me that it would be essential for this project. or to even initiate the project. So I will not vote in favor of this public hearing. I'd put it off to later until we have all of the information. For me, that's a real concern. Your worship, just to clarify the procedure, this evening we're just setting a date. That's just to start the process. So yes, we have some information that has been put together in the package by staff. On June 24th, that's when we're going to bring all of the information that will allow you to look at all of the elements that are integral, that are part of the decision. And then we will stress that to the developer that the traffic information, the traffic impact study is a part and parcel of the decision. Tonight, we're only saying that the public hearing is on 24th of June, the PAC meeting, and their decision would be for September 9th. So tonight is just to get the ball rolling, but all of this information should be presented by June 24th. So it's if we had too much information before the presentation, that would lead to confusion as well. So I think June 24th is the right moment to receive that information. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Lantagne. Yes, I support Councillor Godbout's comments. I understand what you're saying, Mr. Melanson, and that's fine, but I want to make sure that when comes time to vote on the project, that we have received the traffic impact study and every other study that is necessary before we vote, and not just a week before, but several weeks in advance so that we can look at it in depth and study it before we make our decision. The message will be given to the developer. Thank you. Councillor Godbout. Yes, thank you. Thank you for your clarification. I'm reassured by the fact that there will be a traffic impact study. I had doubts, but that won't change my decision for this evening because we're still going to commit resources and procedures. This is a decision we're making this evening that we're going to commit resources and start procedures. And I want to make an informed decision, but in order to do that, I need that traffic impact study. So I'm going to vote against. Thank you. Anybody else? If not, let's vote. All those in favor of the resolution will signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Please raise the nays. Raise your hands. 4 nays. Just for the recording then, for the minutes, Councillor Janin, Councillor Brideau, Councillor Godbout, and Councillor Turgeon-Roy. Thank you. So the mayor has to vote, and the mayor votes in favor of proceeding. I think that the study will doing the study in advance would be almost to prejudice the project before we have all the information. So I support the resolution. Let's move on. We are now at municipal bylaws. Mr. Melanson, I would ask Mr. Simard to present the municipal bylaws this evening. Mr. Simard, thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, we are now at bylaws, and for first reading, so 12.1, it's bylaw S-3, the bylaw concerning fire protection services fees. There was a presentation by Firemark, so now we're now at the second step to adopt a bylaw on the fire protection services fees, to ask for these fees from the insurance company. And it's a short bylaw, just only 3 pages, and this will allow the city to claim these fees and to designate Firemark as the company that will claim this from the insurance company. So this evening we're here for first and second reading. Thank you. Who would like to read this first time? Councillor Jeannin. Thank you, Your Worship. Bylaw S-3 2024, bylaw concerning fire protection services fees. And I so move first reading. Thank you. It's been moved. Somebody to second, rather? Councillor Brideau, who would like to second it? It's been seconded. And all those in favor of the resolution will signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. It's carried in first reading. And we'll now move on to second reading, once again by title only. Councillor Jeannin, bylaw S-3 2024, a bylaw concerning fire protection services fees, and I so move second reading. Thank you. It's been moved by Councillor Brideau. Yes, still okay. So let's all those in favor of the resolution will signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Bylaw S-3 2024 is carried in second reading by title only, which brings us to 12.1, first reading of, perhaps we should talk about it a little more. It's a bylaw C-35. Just a word, if I may, Your Worship. This is a bylaw on vegetative growth, which was presented to you at a previous meeting. As you know, we presented this that is trying to amend the grass bylaw, the lawn bylaw, but the changes that we're proposing are there to make the city compliant with a decision of the Supreme Court that in which we could not impose a height of grass because it's not for reasons of security or toxicity. And so this is what we're recommending this evening, first and second reading. Thank you for first reading then, by title only. Councillor Turgeon-Roy. Thank you, Your Worship. So it's a bylaw C-35 2024, a bylaw of the City of Dieppe respecting vegetative growth. And I so move it in first reading by title only. Thank you. It's been moved by Councillor Turgeon-Roy, seconded by Councillor Thibodeau on the question. No questions. Oh, sorry, Councillor Thibodeau. On page 97 of the report form, paragraph section 2, it says, the officers are authorized to visit and examine all buildings or properties or the inside and the inside of a building. Why would they go inside the building? Well, this is a generic paragraph that we started putting in all of our bylaws for the last 3 or 4 years. So we're not taking any chances. We put it everywhere. But of course, it's we're not going to authorize. We're not going to regulate the height of grass within a building. I mean, it would surprise me that it would be there. So if it's not going to be any grass in a building, why put it here? Well, it doesn't give anything to anybody, but it doesn't take away anything. It's just a generic section of the bylaw that we use generically, and we can remove it. If that will never be implemented, but it won't change anything in the fact. We could perhaps do that in third reading. Well, if I have the bylaw officers, if they don't like something, it means they can come into my house. And well, you know that our officers are reasonable people, Councillor. They don't make laws for anything. And in any case, to go into a house, you need a warrant or at least the permission of the owner. Okay, well, that's my question then. Why have it here? Well, if it bothers you that much, we can remove that. There's no problem. We can remove it at third reading. Okay. Well, We'll have to vote on it then. It's already decided. So are we ready? Are we ready to vote? Oh, well, I have another point to raise. Well, Section 3, Council authorizes, paragraph 3, a council authorizes bylaw enforcement officers to initiate proceedings against any person who contravenes any provision of this bylaw and accordingly authorizes them to issue such tickets as may be necessary. I don't know if we're going to be able to enforce this. Because the bylaw is so broad. No, on the contrary, Councillor Thibodeau, if you read Section 1, you say that there are certain things that are not allowed, such as to not obstruct sidewalks and traffic lanes, to not obstruct the visibility, and to eliminate poisonous species. And so these are the elements that would allow us to make sure that the people have to abide by this. So Section 2.3 is essential for the bylaw because of that.
C'est bien. Merci, Madame.
Thank you.
Merci, conseiller
Councillor
Thibodeau.
Godbout. That's great, Rennie. And you've captured a good point. As I would keep this for two reasons. First, because you can go inside if the elements of the bylaw have been complied with. But there are scenarios, and we have to think about this later. One day, I hope there will be apartment blocks with internal courtyards. I hope that we'll see things where we have courtyards that people want to do things. And so it's to be open to these possibilities in the future. So I like this idea, and I like to be consistent because it'll be easy to administer things. And when you said this, at the first reading, I thought he was right, but there are other valid reasons to keep it. Those are the comments I have about this. Any further comments? If not, let's move to the vote regarding the first reading by title, which was done. All those in favor of this motion will say aye. Against, nay. The motion is carried. Let us move on now to second reading by title. Are you ready for the second reading, Councillor Thibodeau? It's Councillor Turgeon-Roy. Oh, I'm sorry. Pardon me. Thank you, Your Worship. Bylaw C-35/2024, a bylaw of the City of Dieppe respecting vegetative growth. I so move by second reading in title alone. Thank you. Moved by Councillor Turgeon-Roy and was seconded by Councillor Thibodeau, and who continues to second. And with regard to the vote, all those in favor of this motion will say aye. Against, nay. This motion is passed for the reading of the second reading by title. This brings us to bylaw C-34. Thank you, Your Worship. Considering the fact that we have read first and second readings of bylaw C-35, C-35, we now have to amend C-34 because C-34 also dealt with vegetation and other items. If you look at pages 113 and 115 of the package, you'll see that we had to withdraw these elements from that bylaw. And that's why we're showing you this amendment tonight that we will read first and second reading. Thank you. To read the resolution, Councillor Thibodeau. Thank you, Your Worship. Bylaw C-34/2024, a bylaw of the City of Dieppe concerning streets, sidewalks, and trails. I move the first reading by title alone. Thank you. Moved by Councillor Thibodeau, seconded by Councillor Lantagne on the question. There being none, all those in favor of the motion will say aye. Against, nay. The motion is passed for first reading. Let's move on to second reading. Councillor Thibodeau, if you're still in good voice, yes. Bylaw C-34, 2024, a bylaw of the City of Dieppe concerning streets, sidewalks, and trails. I so move. Second reading by title alone. Once again, moved by Councillor Thibodeau and seconded by Councillor Lantagne. You continue to second that motion. All those in favor of this motion will say aye. Against, nay. C-34 passed in second reading by title alone. Bylaw 78.5.
Oui, Monsieur le maire. En fait,
Yes, Your Worship. In fact,
cet arrêté-là
this bylaw deals with the water and sewage systems, and the difficulties we have with implementing this bylaw is that the fines are very low at the current time. So this bylaw is a little old, and we're working on it to update it. However, we've observed an urgency to increase the fines, and more specifically, we're moving from a $20 fine to a $200 fine, because a fine of $20 is not very strict. So we're moving from $20 to $200 and from $140 to $2,100. In fact, there are people who get drinking water from other sources, and we'll be a little more serious with them about this behavior. And so that's why we're presenting first and second reading of this bylaw this evening. Thank you. To read this resolution, Councillor Genet. Thank you, Your Worship. Bylaw number 78-5, 13-2024, a bylaw and amendment of bylaw number 78-5 of the municipality of Dieppe respecting the water and sewerage systems. I move the first reading by title. Thank you. Moved by Councillor Genet, seconded by Councillor Brideau on the question. There being none, all those in favor of this motion will say aye. Against, nay. Carried. For first reading, let's move on now to second reading by title alone. Councillor Genet. Thank you, Your Worship. Bylaw number 78-5, 13-2024, a bylaw and amendment of bylaw number 78-5 of the municipality of Dieppe respecting the water and sewerage systems. I move second reading by title. Thank you. Once again, moved by Councillor Genet, seconded by Councillor Brideau. On the question, there being none, all those in favor of this motion will say aye. Against, nay. This motion is carried as presented. Now, under 13, notice of motion. I'm sorry, bylaw Z9. Your Worship, we're at the stage where we are presenting notice of motion of bylaw Z9. So one of the councillors, according to new procedures in place, must read or give notice of motion for bylaw Z9 2017-11, which will be introduced at a future meeting. Thank you. For this, we'll ask Councillor Lantagne. Thank you, Your Worship. I give notice that bylaw Z9 2017-11, amending the Municipal Development Plan bylaw, will be introduced at a future meeting of Council for first and second reading. Thank you. The resolution. No, there's no seconder with notices of motion. So we have to vote? No, there's no vote. We move on to the next item. Move on. Thank you, Mr. Lantagne. Councillor Le Boutillier, sorry. It's just a question of information because in our agenda, we have bylaw Z9 The title is amending the municipal development plan bylaw, but we read Z10. Just a question of clarification. Oh, sorry. Thank you. Oh, yes. We'll fix that. Yes, thank you for bringing that to our attention. Thank you. Thank you. 13.1. Yes, there's an amendment to the municipal development plan in this first matter. So it is bylaw Z9 2017-11, which is going to be amended along with bylaw Z10 2021-12. So the notice of motion has been given that bylaw Z9 2017-11 will be introduced. Thank you. The next item, once again, is a notice of motion. So 13.2, bylaw Z10 2021-12, amending the zoning bylaw. There's an amendment to part of the residential and urban zoning from a commercial to city centers. You have to go on to do a notice of motion as we have just done. Thank you. Councillor Lantagne. I give notice that bylaw Z10 2021-12, amending the zoning bylaw, will be introduced at a future meeting of council for first and second reading. Thank you. The next one. The next notice of motion. Thank you, Worship. I give notice that bylaw Z-10 2021-13, amending the zoning bylaw, will be introduced at a future meeting of council for first and second reading. There you go. Thank you once again. This brings us to item 14, inquiries and announcements by members of council. Let's begin with Councillor Godette, who's been quiet in his corner all by himself.
I had received a call, Your Worship, about Amiro Street for the mill, about milling. Is that what it's called? Milling? That there was a. Are you talking about the patching work for 2024? And I can't answer that. Mr. Bourque isn't here either, so we'll come back to you. But the patching started about 2 weeks ago. No, it's just the road in that area is really bad, and I know there are some projects coming up for Dieppe Boulevard, and there's going to be some water mains put down, and it might take 2-3 years. I mean, there was the road has gotten much worse, and we're just wondering what's been done, what is going to be done. Well, this year it's just patching that is going to be done on Amiro Street in that section. There's no milling going to be there before all of the work, the cuts and the underground work done. I think we sent information to the residents in that section to share our intentions with them, but of course it depends on the budget, of course, but we want to do Dieppe Boulevard before we start to work on Amiro, because it'll be a complete reconstruction on Amiro with all of the water mains changed. So that'll be in like 3 or 4 years or something. Well, I understand that. And I saw the document where it's explained very well. It's just, I don't think we should let it go, just let it go in that section of the road, because there's a lot of traffic there. No, patching will be done very carefully like we did in the past. Yep. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. That's all. Thank you. Councillor Leboutier. Thank you, Your Worship. Just 2 questions on a follow-up. In terms of lighting, a few years ago, we had talked about the corner of Central Thomas and Chartersville streets because there are no houses there, there are no street lights there. It's very dark. And so even if you take Central Street, you want to cross Chartersville, it's difficult to see people. And I would like to follow up if it hasn't been done, that to check the lighting. There's a lack of lighting in that area. Perhaps we should add another street light, or that was my first point. And bicycles. Bicycles have started using the trails. Now, we had talked about Avant-Garde Street, and I think we had talked about crosswalks on the pavement, or to put an indication, especially where there are parks. Is that going to be done this year, the traffic markings, the road markings? Well, according to the information I've refused, and Public Work is getting ready to do that shortly. So Avant-Garde should be done this year, yes. But even the street below Avant-Garde, I don't know its name, because there are two hills that meet, and I know there are two stop signs, but it's people, they look and they see, there's a crosswalk, and they'll think about it. Well, according to the information I have, is that they're going to they have the patterns, they're going to put them on the street and they're going to paint it, and it's pretty quick once they get started. Thank you. Is that it? Yes, thank you. Thank you. Councillor Gannett. Thank you, Your Worship. I have a message, Your Worship, and dear colleagues and city staff. I would like to thank you once again for the trust you had in me, that you placed in me over the last year as Deputy Mayor, and all of the assistance I received with the speeches for community events, the organization of my calendar, where I had to go, all of the advice you gave me, the support that you gave me at all of the meetings that I chaired every time the mayor was absent. I'd never thought that a young elected official like myself could do that, but it was made much easier, and it was very pleasant because of all of you. I learned a lot in different contexts, in different environments, in events that I was unfamiliar with, and also, or I was familiar with, but in some settings and environments that are far from my personal normal life, personal and professional. So I'm very grateful for having had the experience. I didn't put my name in the election this year because I thought my schedule was going to be too busy over the next few years to accomplish these additional tasks, but I really enjoyed it. So thank you to all of you. And I wish Mr. Ernest Thibodeau all the best of luck as Deputy Mayor. And I'm convinced that he will do a great job once again, representing the city as necessary, and when the mayor is away. So thank you to everybody. Thank you. And thank you, Councillor, for the excellent job you did during this period. I had no concerns. I knew that I could go to events myself, or that they were well covered when I couldn't go. And I always received excellent comments from people who were there. Everybody said you did a great job. And thank you, Your Worship. Well, as a good loser, I'd like to congratulate my colleague Ernest for his elections tonight. Good luck, and I have nothing else to add. Thank you. Thank you. Councillor Thibodeau. Well, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank my colleagues who are giving me their trust for the next year as Deputy Mayor. I was able to observe Melissa, and I know she did a great job over the last year. And I think I will be able to continue in the same way. I'd like to thank all of you for the trust that you have shown me. Thank you. That's all, Your Worship. Councillor Turgeon-Roy, yeah, you had a little bit of noise there in the background as you were talking. I just want to add to Councillor Le Boutillier's comment about crosswalks. I don't know if it would be possible to get a reminder about which crosswalks are going to be done this year. I hear a lot of comments about neighborhoods that have densified over the last few years in Centrale and Bourg Street. Bourg, especially because it's a really straight road and the people drive quickly. But there are two fluorescent poles there that indicate that there's a crosswalk, but I don't think that's enough. And those are the comments I've refused, and I've also observed an accident as well. So, and just so we don't ask you the same questions all the time, but I'd like to know what the plans are for crosswalks. And at least when we get the questions, we'll be able to answer. It's just a comment. Thank you. Two other points. I'd like to congratulate the Dieppe group that won Accro de la Chanson this week. It's called Mes Apotamis, Les Inconnus. It's a group from Mathieu Martin. Congratulations to them that won the prize. They're people from here. And June is coming quickly. It's Pride Month. So I would invite citizens to participate in the Dieppe Pride Festival. There's a great program starting Saturday at 10 a.m. with the flag raising at City Hall. So I'd invite citizens to participate with pride. Thank you. That's all for me. Councillor Godbout. Thank you, Your Worship. Just at the next public meeting of the CRPA, it will be on June 6th at the Riverview City Hall. It's open to the public for anybody who wants to participate. Thank you, Councillor Jeannet, for your service for the last year, and and thank you to Councillor Thibodeau for offering to be Deputy Mayor for the next year. And we appreciate the role and what you're going to contribute. And thank you to the citizens who have come to our meetings. It's always appreciated. And congratulations to the graduates of Université de Moncton. The university gives a great service to the community by educating our youth and our citizens, and we continue to build a city where our youth will want to live. Thank you. Councillor Dantin. Thank you. And I'd like to thank Councillor Jeannin as well for her role as Deputy Mayor for the last year. You did a great job, and congratulations to Councillor Thibodeau for his nomination. And thank you to Councillor Le Boutillier for having raised the issue of Avant-Garde Street. We've been talking about it for some time now. And so thank you for bringing it back. And thank you to staff for following up. And lastly, I'd like to thank the Recreation Department and staff for the great summer program. Once again, excellent job, diverse, very different programming. We invite the population to participate in all of these programs, of which a number are free events. So have a great summer, everybody. Thank you. Thank you. And I don't have much to add except to say that we're heading towards summer. And as was mentioned, a lot of things are going to be happening in our community. So I hope to see you all at all of these events. And have a great evening, everyone.